Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. You are here for How to Live Your Life by Design, Not by Default. This is for Black women in toxic jobs. My lighting is a little off. Welcome. I am so excited to have Chrishan Wright here with us today. And my energy is a little low because I'm a little under the weather, but I'm still
Oh,
excited to be here today. So we're going to talk about living life on our own terms. So as Black women, I talk a lot about what we go through as Black women and prioritizing other people and dealing with very toxic environments. And that can take a toll on us. So we're
mhm.
here to talk about ways to take your power back. So I'm going to turn it over to Krishan for her to introduce herself, and we're going to get right to discussion. So Krishan,
Hey, thank you for having me, Dr. Kimani. I'm so happy to be here. So sorry to hear that you're under the weather, but
thank
sending
you.
you positive healing vibes so that
Thank
you
you.
can
Thank you.
have a
Thank
speedy
you.
recovery.
Receive.
It's a pleasure to be on your platform. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chrishan Wright. I'm the founder of Blaxit Global and the host of the Blaxit Global podcast. Blaxit Global exists to empower and inspire members of the African diaspora to pursue a life abroad.
Awesome. Thank you, Krishan. And let me just tell everybody briefly how I met Krishan.
Mhm.
So everybody watches Stephanie Perry, right?
Yes.
So, when you watch Stephanie Perry, like new videos get generated to you, right? Get suggested to you. So Krishan's video, my Blaxit Global, got suggested to me. And so I've been watching her channels. And then I think I just reached out to Krishan because I think I saw
Mhm.
her on our Black Utopia. And I
Yes.
reached out to her. And that's the beauty of YouTube is that you can reach out to anybody, and what I
Mhm.
love about this community is that people are so receptive. So I reached out to Krishan, and then Krishan invited me on her channel. I invited her on my channel. So I'm happy to be here with her. And Krishan has agreed to be practice coaching with her for the Hello
Mhm.
Seven coach certification program. So more information is coming
Yay.
up about that. And so Krishan has volunteered to be one of the people I'm coaching. So I'm so happy about that. So
Me too.
Krishan, yay. You
Yeah.
quote that was like mic drop, right? So the
Wow.
quote was, I hope I don't mess it up. So the quote was that you want to live your life by design, not by default.
Yes.
That was whoa, that spoke to my soul when I heard that. Okay. So can
Mm.
you share with the audience what was it that you meant by that quote?
Ooh, I think for everybody that's going to resonate on a different vibration just based on their lived experiences and circumstances. But
Mhm.
for me, there was points in my life, and I can't say a point.
Yeah.
There were points along the journey where I felt like I was living a life that I just kind of fell into, but not that I
Mhm.
had intentionally created or co-created for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you get to a point where there's dissatisfaction, there's
Mhm.
dis-ease, there's
Mhm.
disease, there's a whole lot
Mhm.
of things that can manifest and bubble up.
Mhm.
And for me, I once I took the steps to, in my words, also blow up my life, and start to redesign and put the pieces of the puzzle back in a way that was intentional, that felt good, that was
Mhm.
consistent with my values and who I
Mhm.
am
Mhm.
and how I want to show up in the world.
Yeah.
That's when I started to live life by my own design,
Mm.
and I encourage people to do the same.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us as Black women, particularly those who have been brought up in America, that we've been socially programmed. I think Black women everywhere actually, social programmed in terms of this is how we should be, this is how we should aspire, these are the things that we should do, right? And then I think it gets to a certain point, maybe a certain age or circumstances, that many of us get to the point where we're like, this is not serving me. This life is not serving me. I'm deeply unfulfilled. And you
Yeah.
get to a point where you think, I worked this hard for this? Like, there's gotta be something better for this. This is not this is this a joke, right? And
Yeah.
so you talked about like blowing up your life, right? Can you talk to the audience a little bit more in terms of what were the things that let you know that it was time to let go of certain things? Like those things were not serving you.
Yeah, I mean, there were, like I said, there were points in my life. I would say one was my marriage. I realized that that was not going to work out,
Hmm.
despite my best efforts, potentially
Mhm.
my ex's best
Mhm.
efforts. And we have children in common, right? We have children together, and that's a very difficult decision to make.
Yes.
But fast forward, 13 plus years, no regrets, because I think collectively we're in a better place.
Mm.
But it took the courage to break
Mhm.
free from my perspective, which was a toxic relationship.
Uh-huh.
Then when I looked at, points in my life where I've been in careers, and one particular job that it was toxic all the way around,
Mm.
not just for me, but even my colleagues. One had, my manager had a nervous breakdown.
Wow.
Another colleague wound up having a heart attack. I
Wow.
started having gastrointestinal issues and sleep issues.
Mm.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, it was all
Mm.
around toxic.
Mm.
And I, got myself out of that environment. And then lastly, most recently, we're having this conversation, and I'm in Lisbon, Portugal, where I now live for the past
Yes.
2.5 months. um, and, realizing that my life in America
Mhm.
was the epitome of toxicity,
Yeah. Ooh.
not just me as an individual, but for us as Black people and Black
Yes.
women.
Yes.
And, I created Blaxit Global in 2020, largely in response to everything that 2020 was.
Mhm.
And sadly, even 3 years after that,
Mhm.
not much has changed, right?
True.
Despite the efforts of performative allyship and corporations, putting up black tiles and saying that they were going to, make efforts towards change and
Efforts, truly
diversity.
efforts,
Yeah,
truly. That's what it was.
efforts.
Depor Performative gestures. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, right? That has no accountability,
Mm-mm.
and people in DEI roles that weren't funded, don't
Mhm.
have the right chain of, command to actually
Mhm.
affect
Set up for
any
failure.
change in a meaningful way.
Yep.
And so, and these blended terms that we get put into that don't, that allow,
Mhm.
our needs to go overlooked, and or oftentimes,
Yeah.
the efforts that we do get co-opted, right? So
Yes.
that was, a wake-up call for me, that
Yeah.
this was not going to change. While there were, signs and gestures that were said,
Yeah.
uh, you had to look through the BS and
Ooh.
realize it was time to go.
Exactly. Like, sometimes we see the writing on the wall, but I think as
Mhm.
Black women, sometimes we see the writing. We're like, oh, I see it. But we keep persevering, right? So were there
Mhm.
episodes at that toxic job, because I talk so much about toxic jobs,
Mhm.
were there any episodes or signs in a toxic job where the writing was on the wall, there were some
Mhm.
signs, and you still stayed? Because I think a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of Black women are in that situation, right? Can you speak to what were those situations, what were those signs, and
Mhm.
what motivated you to stay?
Yeah, I mean, there were signs. There were, I've gone through so many leadership development programs, always labeled as high potential. And it's no surprise, when I was in school, it was National Honor Society, Dean's List, like all this. I know how I can perform, right?
Right.
So getting into a corporate environment and you putting me into a high potential, group and development, that's all fine and good. So I've been developed.
You well done, okay?
Right? If I was a piece of meat, I'd have been well done. If I
Right,
was if I was a piece of film, I'd be overexposed, right?
right,
It
right,
was just, so it got to a point where it was like laughable. I had to
right.
stop thinking that I needed to continue to achieve and try to, aspire. And if they
Mm,
see me in this way or look a certain way or speak a certain
mhm.
way, no, I'm a girl from the Bronx, right? And this is who I am. This
Yes,
is how I show up. And the more I
yes.
started to peel the onion back, stop straightening my hair, stop
Mm,
worrying about, looking a certain way,
mhm.
speaking a certain way, and thinking a certain way, right?
Ooh, ooh,
That
ooh, Chrishan, can we go there? You know, I'm a psychologist, and you said think in a certain way. Can you
yeah,
elaborate on that, please?
they want, it when you look not just in corporate America, when you look
Mhm,
at the whole entire system, all the
mhm,
way back to education, right?
mhm.
It's to get people to think and behave in a certain way.
True.
And it's very much this hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Somebody asks a question. you have to raise your hand. You want to
Right.
go to the bathroom? Oh, I need to raise my hand, right?
Right.
So when you get into the workplace, then it becomes this, and I thought it was just the one job, right? Your meetings about the meeting that you're meeting from the other meeting. And it's
Right.
like, well, I'm meeting every day and I'm not doing any real work,
Right. Right.
or or you're being hired because of your fresh ideas and
Uh-huh.
your new perspective.
Uh-huh.
But the second you try to, articulate any of those, it's like, nope.
Right.
Like, we don't really want that idea. We
Right.
want to
Right.
keep doing
That's
what
gone
we're
too far.
yeah, like that's
Yeah.
a bridge too far.
Right.
And so it gets into this whole situation where you are continuously gaslit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be kind because I'm not sure about language on your channel, but it's a big mind F.
I said the same thing. It truly is. It's a mind
It
app. It
is.
is.
And you walk around and because also we have been as Black people conditioned
Mm-hmm.
to, as much as we are communal people by nature,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that there's this, larger society of American individualism and bootstrapping and this divisiveness even within our own community.
True.
So when you get into a work environment, even if you see another sister or brother, then it's just like, oh, well, we don't want to be seen together talking too much because then somebody going to say, it's all of these things that permeate your mind,
Yeah.
and you're worried so much about, okay, is my resting bitch face? No, this is my regular face, right? Or
Mhm.
if I'm, looking a certain way or saying certain
Or the
things,
tone
that
policing.
the tone
Yeah.
policing, right? Or if I come in, yesterday I had my hair in a fro, today I've got, like, oh, your hair grew like 10 feet in a day.
Right.
Yes, overnight.
And can
Yes,
I
we are
touch it?
magic.
Oh, it's so cute. Yeah. No.
Right? We are magic. We crack the code and you can grow your hair overnight. And
Right.
like,
Right.
so it's just the mental energy that takes away from, standing in your truth for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And the trade-off, and I made that trade-off, was I had to think about it. It's like, okay, this is a crappy ass environment,
Mhm.
but from my door to my desk, it's a 8-minute commute.
Mm.
And I live and work in the same state. So I'm
Mhm.
not paying taxes to 2 states, right?
Mhm.
I'm able to go get my kids
Mhm.
and, do all these things and provide for my family as a
Yeah.
solo parent
Yes.
raising 2 children.
Yes.
And so I knew that if I wanted to make the salary that I was commanding
Mhm.
and still have that, oh, if I need to get something from the store for dinner, I can
Mhm.
just run out to the store,
Mhm.
come back, still make my meeting.
Mhm.
I'm not in Manhattan, which would be the
Mhm.
closest place that I would have to go to
Mhm.
command that salary.
Mhm.
I'm riding 2 hours in, 2 hours out,
Mm.
all of those things. And it's just like I had done that before and it
Yeah.
was exhausting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we tend to do this. There's a word for it, and it escapes me at the moment.
Mhm.
But you have to do this like cost benefit analysis,
True. True.
and there's not a winner in either solution. It's just
No.
like you're really making a decision between the worst of two evils, right? Because you can kind of frame it as the best. Like the best is that I was still able to be there, and do the things that I need to do for my kids. But
Yeah.
was I truly there in retrospect? My kids are now adults.
Mhm.
No, because by the time I would get home, now I've got to switch gears from,
Mhm.
this protective barrier that I've had to
Mhm.
put
Your
around myself,
psychological armoring all day,
right?
masking.
Exactly.
Yep.
Then to take it off, then have
Mhm.
a breather, then show back up and be
Mhm.
mom. And, we can talk as much as we want about putting the oxygen mask on ourselves, but you know what? You're
Constantly. Yeah.
constantly depleted.
Yes.
And so I got to a point where it's like, I can't change the system. I've
Yeah.
worked in politics, I've worked in television, worked in healthcare, had
Mhm.
high ranking jobs in all of them, right? I
Mhm.
realized as much as I was, you know, um, optimistic about things and a little healthy level of
Mhm.
naivete,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it's like, oh no, it's working as it's supposed to work.
It's work
So,
and it's showing you how to function in a dysfunctional situation, right? So
Mhm.
you were able to master it, right? Like, oh, well, I can go get the food, I can go do this. And you were able
Yeah.
to master it. And I think a lot of Black women, we're juggling these plates, right? We got all these
Yeah.
plates and we're juggling it, but it's an environment that's not healthy for us.
Mhm.
And when you think about our kids, we're doing these things for the benefit of our kids many times, right? And then we come home, but they're getting the least effective
Yes.
part of us.
Mhm.
They're getting the crumbs because we've been depleted from
Mhm.
the job and we never have time to kind of fully recover because
Yes.
during the week you're rushing. During the weekend, you're probably doing errands. You have
Mhm.
never have a time. And then Sunday night, you're dreading the whole Sunday because you think about you got to go back and do this all over again. So you never
Exactly.
recuperate, right?
Yeah, now I live in Portugal. I'm like, oh, I don't have the Sunday scaries anymore. It's like
Oh,
life
Sunday
is good.
scaries. Oh, Sunday scaries. Ladies, you might be here right now from the Sunday scaries, right? So I
Hello.
usually go live at 5 because
Mm.
that was the day, the time that was the absolute worst for me, Krishan. 5 o'clock on a Sunday when I was at that Toxic job before I resigned, the worst day of the week because I knew I had to go back, right?
Yeah.
So today, ladies, we're on earlier because Krishan is in Portugal. So we want to
Mhm.
be respectful of her time. And also for me, that was Sunday scary, Sunday. But most people talk about Sunday scaries all day,
Mm.
right? So all day dreading the whole Sunday because of
Mhm.
the thought of going back to the job. And Krishan, you said something else that was so valuable that I want to take a moment with.
Yeah, of
So you
course.
talked about sometimes, even when there's other Black people in the environment, that sometimes they are not supportive. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
times it's this fear based divide and conquer, fear of competition. I don't want to be associated with you. Oh, you're my competition. All that dysfunctional way of
Mhm.
being. So again, it really talks about a toxic system. I say all the time, the water is dirty. The whole
Yes.
system is toxic, right? The whole system is toxic. And Krishan, you also talked about how they seek you out. Many times it's Black
Mhm.
women, and it's across careers. So that's when I say to Black women, and I might reach out to a Black woman and say, "Hey, tell me about a toxic work experience." They say, "Which one?" They've had so
Where
so
do you
many.
want to
They don't even
start?
know where to
How
start,
far
right?
back
They're
do you
like,
want to
"Oh, is it
go?
this one? Is it that one?" Right? It's so many, and I want to say to Black women too. Sometimes we've been fed the lie, and I can't stand this. We've been fed the
Mm.
lie that we've been fed so many lies. Well, one of the lies we've been fed is, well, if this is the same situation across situations, and you're the common denominator, then you're the problem. And I say, wait a
Mm.
minute, racism, sexism is permeating all of our systems. So that is the problem. You are not the
Mhm.
problem. The system is
Mhm.
the problem.
Mhm.
More than likely, now there's some people who do some stuff. I'm talking about most Black women are probably doing the best. And Krishan, you made reference to Pet to Threat. So anyone who does
Mhm.
not know about Pet to Threat, I got to tell you about it very briefly, right? So Pet to Threat was created by three Black women researchers, Dr. Juanita Johnson Bailey, Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr. Rosemary Phelps. I will always say their names because people have stolen their work and not given them credit.
Mhm.
So I will always say their names, okay? So if you don't know about Pet to Threat, check it out. Pet to Threat deals with when a Black woman is brought into a workplace because she's so dope, right? Oh, Krishan is so smart. We love Krishan. Oh my gosh, she's transfer. She does everything. She's magical, right? So Krishan comes to the work environment. Krishan shows up. She shows out. She's doing it, right? Krishan starts getting attention that other people are not getting, and then it shifts in terms of how she's seen and treated in terms of
Mhm.
her threat, right? So, Krishan, how did you get to that point though? Because you talked about these are things that happen, and I can imagine that was a courageous move for you to say, no, no more.
Mhm.
How did you?
Yeah.
What was that pinnacle moment, or was there a pinnacle moment? It was like, it was like a convergence of factors, right? That you said, no more. I
Mhm.
can't live like this.
Yeah, I think in 2019, that was a big shift for me. That's when I left that toxic environment, and I knew there was a whole lot of things going on within the company and a lot of changes taking place. And then the go forward was going to be another period of change.
Uh,
And I did the math and I was like, I'm not spending another 5 years. And it's like, I physically can't, right? Like I was having all of those issues that I mentioned before, the
mhm.
sleep disturbances and
Yeah,
everything. And I was like, look, just give me the money, right?
give my
So that
freedom.
was one.
Give my freedom money. Yes, off the plantation. Yes.
Right? Pay me to go. I'll be fine.
Right.
And I am so glad that I had my money right where I could make that
Yeah.
decision because there were times in my career where I had been laid off the first time. And I think I'm up to maybe 5 at this point. I don't even know. Now I get excited. I just look for companies to let me go. It's
Take
quite
me,
lucrative.
please. Let me go. Give me freedom. Yes.
Put that in your LinkedIn search.
Right.
And so I started to realize, I was like, you know what? If I shore up the ship financially, if slash when it's going to happen again, and it will,
Yeah.
because the older you get, right? I'm going to be 50 in a few months.
Mhm.
And the older you get, the bigger the target on your back. So if we're not dealing enough with being a female, being
Wow.
Black, being in America, being in corporate America, then at age,
Wow.
it's just like, okay, y'all.
Yeah.
Right?
It shows you even more
And
how dysfunctional it is, right? How
yeah, you
stacked
just
against
have to
us.
like think about it, and I had to, take the time, pull
Mhm.
back the layers, and then when I made that decision, I said, okay, what do I want to do going forward? I
Mm.
don't want 100% of my income coming from my job. Too
Right.
risky, right? Because when they decide that they have misappropriated
Disaster.
funds, or
Disaster.
need to go in a new direction, or you've gone from pet to threat, like any of
Yes.
these things that can happen to us.
Yes.
I did not want to give up that power, need to
True.
take my power back.
Yes.
And then one of the things that I also did, as I looked at, my plan for 2023 to move abroad, and I started Blaxit Global in 2020, but I made the decision to move abroad in 2017. So this
Mm.
has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
I had a long-term goal, and I had set benchmarks for myself that I wanted to get to a certain level in terms of my savings and,
Mhm.
all of the things. But I also knew that there were threats, right? I could lose my job, anything can happen, all these things. The economy can go to crap, right?
Right.
And so I had to think ahead so that I can start to strategize when things were calm. Like
Yeah.
what's going to be my plan B? Because like you
Yes.
said earlier, we go in and we're resilient,
Mhm.
and there's nothing we can't do. But the more that we can take time to be thoughtful in our planning and use that superpower to our advantage, that's
Yes.
going to help us start to take our power back. And so
Yes.
I did that as well. So then I got to a point, especially when all of the shenanigans were going on in 2020, and
Mhm.
companies, oh, we're going to pour this money into
Mhm.
this and all of that.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, when I go back in any environment, it's going to be on my terms, right?
Good.
I,
Good.
I don't have to, put points on the board. I don't have to do the most,
Mhm.
right? I'm going to give as much effort as a mediocre white man.
Oh, say that again for the people in the back, please.
I'm going to
And
put as
I
much
know,
effort.
my friend Colette Elizabeth talks about say it again to people back. Say that again, please,
Yes.
Chrishan.
Yes, I'm gonna
What
put
are you
as
gonna
much
ask?
energy as a mediocre white man,
Okay. Yes. Black women.
right?
You heard that, right? Yes. Okay.
Because
Okay.
I don't have to do the most. Because why? And again, it's like the deconditioning that needs to happen. Why am I worried about what somebody else is going to think about me when you can't even value me as a human?
Right.
Right? It's
Exactly.
like,
And you exploiting my labor. You lying in my face.
exactly.
You micromanaging me. You disrespecting
Nothing
me.
has changed since
Right.
2020, and certainly
Yeah.
nothing has changed from before. So
Yeah.
why would I sit there? Like, we're sitting here having this conversation in 2023. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act still is not law,
Wow.
right? There are so many things that we can go on and on about, but I know we're trying to stay on topic. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate, it's because you know in your heart that it's not going to change. And when you
Right.
have that awakening and you know that it is the system in which you're existing in, not living
Yes.
in, you're
Yes.
existing in it.
Yes.
And you have to figure out, can you continue to, or do you want to continue
Right.
to exist in this system?
Yeah.
Or do you want to extricate yourself from this system, put yourself in a new environment and thrive?
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
different than you get a plant and you put it in and it's like wilting and dying. You're like, okay, let me put some fertilizer, maybe let me move it to a different spot of the house or
Mhm.
whatever. Well, all of a sudden it flourishes,
Mm.
right? So we're not trees. And Black people have been migrating voluntarily and involuntarily for centuries. And
True.
so if there is a place on your heart in this planet that you want to call home for a
Yeah.
little while, for a long while, I
Yeah.
say go do it. Go
Yeah.
start to take all of those skills, resources, talents that you have been giving to other people at a discount because we're never even paid our full,
No, no,
wage,
no.
right? And so take those talents and skills and resources to your benefit into
Yeah.
a place where it's going to benefit you. You're going to be able to thrive, and
Mhm.
you're going to be able to, again, live your life by design.
Yes, yes. So that's the power of the quote, right? And
Yeah.
just when you were talking, Krishan, and even the shirt that I have on today, right? Black Joy is revolutionary. You're talking about a revolutionary way for us as Black women, Black people, to
Mhm.
challenge in terms of that social programming of who we are to
Right.
be and where we are supposed to live and all that kind of stuff. So what you're saying is really a major paradigm shift. I think a lot of Black people, Black women, have been so beat down by the system that we don't even think other is possible. And you are showing
Mhm.
by example that it's possible. So as you were moving towards this living by design, right? As
Mhm.
you're moving towards this, did you encounter any fear, in this process of creating this new life for yourself? Any fear, and how did you work through that?
I think the biggest thing I had fear about
Hmm.
was, did I have enough money to do
Uh,
it?
okay.
Not to actually make the physical move,
Okay.
but realizing that because social constructs are what they are,
Yes.
I can't access certain money for quite some time, almost a decade.
Yeah, something they take our money, but we can't access it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had to think like, okay, am I able to do this? And
Yeah.
then also, right, it's well, I've been working all this time and looking forward to doing catch up contributions and the potential upside. But that's the future faking that
Mhm.
happens when you are tied to a system that the closer you get to goal, or you think you're going to get to goal, the yardstick continues to move, and it keeps moving and dangling the carrot, and we keep chasing it and chasing it. And so the more I can start to, and the more I did start to rid myself
Mhm.
of that by confronting it for what it was
Yes.
and seeing
Yes.
it for what it
Calling
was. And
it out. Yeah.
it's like, no, everything isn't like this. And the more I started to travel and go to other countries and have different experiences, and
Uh,
realizing that everything doesn't have to exist in a way to separate you from your dollar,
right.
or
Ooh.
you have to start to pacify yourself, because I could put away a pint or two of some ice cream easily, right?
Yes.
And that was my default, that was my go-to. And so, like, I didn't have to do that anymore. And
Yeah.
so the more I started to be intentional and think about, okay, you know what is enough? Because in America, you never feel like there's enough.
No, that's the
And
system. That's the
yeah,
lie.
think
Yes.
about it. Black Friday's going on, Cyber Monday tomorrow, right? People can't even remember what they got for Christmas last year, or what they
Right.
gave to others for Christmas, right?
Right.
If they celebrate the holiday, let alone you look at all of these other things. I mean, where I lived in New Jersey. Every couple, not even a mile, there would be one storage facility after another storage facility. Oh, they're putting up another storage facility because people have so much crap in their homes
They can't even hold
and
on to
can't even.
it.
And so it's this whole like consumerism, and it's all chasing, and 5 cars in the driveway, 3 houses, this is it. And it's like we never have the time, like, when's enough? When do you
Right.
feel satisfied?
Right.
When do you
And
feel
I think,
satiated?
Krishan, I think a lot of times in America, what we've been taught, and I think just with white supremacy, is that we've been taught to always seek external validation. So if you have a certain
Mm.
car, if you certain house, if you dress a certain way, all these things make you have a sense of value, as opposed to us as focusing on our internal value, that we have the
Mhm.
inherent value, that we don't need to seek external validation. And that's the lie again. But you said something, Krishan, I never heard you say before. You said the future, what did you say? The future lot. What did you say? The future,
Future faking.
what is that again?
It's a term that often is used with narcissism, but it's talking about, like, giving you something to look forward to in the future, right? It might be that, if you do this and you take on this project, it's going to look good for, those other people, and maybe come around bonus time, or da, da, da. So it's always this, like, dangling this future thing that you now
Oh,
built up expectations to perform towards, right? And I'm just using, work as an example, but
yes.
it never comes to fruition, right? You never get to see it, but
Oh,
you're always trying to aspire to it. It might be that
right.
corner office, it might be that car, that house, that whatever, but there's that, it's the fake out, right? It's setting you up
Oh,
for the fake out.
oh, I love that. Okay, and that's on the screen, everybody. Future faking. My mother would call that going for the okey doke, right? You going for the okey doke.
Mhm.
They dangle something. Oh, okay, okay, I do it. And then you like get there and like nothing really happens.
Yeah.
So, Krishan, as you were on this journey, right, did you encounter people around you, people in your circle who maybe were not as evolved in their thinking as you and
Mhm.
maybe projecting their fears onto you? And a lot of people that would distract, right? That would make them just not do it. Did
Yeah.
you encounter that? And if so, how did you work through that?
Yes, I did. And how I dealt with it is, I think I had the benefit of my years of experience. When I was younger and I was just starting out and green,
Uh-huh.
I listened to people. They said, "Oh, don't do that." I was like, "Okay." Because
Um,
again, right, we're programmed to
yeah,
raise my hand,
yeah,
ask for permission,
yeah,
right? Think a certain way.
yeah.
And then as I started to get more seasoned and realized, and that's that whole by default, right? It was living
Yeah,
that whole default
yeah.
lifestyle. And it's like, I don't want this.
This is not working for
It's
me.
not working for me. And I'm doing these things to please people who have no skin in the game,
Right.
right?
They're not
Whether
living
they're
their life.
family, friends, associates, strangers, right?
Yes.
They still don't have any skin in the game.
Right. Right. Right.
You're the
So
one that's
living in
taking
long
the
term.
licks.
Absolutely.
Right? And so when I started to realize that, I'm like, I'm still the one that's got to pull myself out of this bed
Absolutely.
and deal with all this stuff and be
Yes.
all of these things to all of these people.
Yeah.
And the more that I started to realize and take stock of it, it's like, okay, you know what? I don't care anymore. And I created the thing that I needed, which was community. And
Ah,
so Blaxit Global has this community and our Blaxit Global passport
yeah.
where for people, especially as make the decision to move abroad, you're usually the first in your family, the first in your peer set. And a lot of times people don't even want to say anything because they haven't yet gotten fortified enough.
Right.
And I know what that feels like because that used to be me. I was very, very sensitive to any criticism.
Mm.
And the more that I started to build my armor and build my toolkit, and I preach this in the Blaxit Global Move Abroad course, the more I
Mhm.
started to fortify myself, that's when it was just like, no, I don't care what. I'm sorry, this wasn't a conference call. I didn't ask you for
Oh,
permission.
I love it. This is not a conference call. Yes.
You're not paying my
No,
bills. You're not living this
no,
life, you
no.
know?
You're not waking up when I wake up in dread every day to go to this toxic
Yes.
job or the Sunday scaries. That's not your, this is my life, right? So, Krishan, I would love for you to share with the audience, how
Mhm.
did you get to Portugal? Like, what was your evolution? How did you develop my Blaxit Global, the course, the whole thing? So people know about options. I want Black women to know, and you
Mhm.
are an epitome of this. You are sharing Black women. I'm an example of showing Black women about options. So
Yeah.
can you share with them, how did you even get to the point? How did you get to Portugal? What was your
Mhm.
process? And how did you develop my Blaxit Global?
Yeah, so we have to go back a couple years
Okay.
to 2017.
Okay.
And I took my first solo trip to New Zealand. I'm
Oh,
a go big or go home type of girl.
okay.
And so I had, ever since I was a little girl growing up in the Bronx, I wanted to live in New Zealand.
Okay.
And I used to journal about it, this whole thing. And I said, when I was 26, I was going to be a corporate lawyer living in New Zealand. And when I was 26, I graduated with my master's. I was pregnant with my son and focused on being a mom.
Yes.
And I tried, wanted to move abroad before to Canada. That didn't work out. And then, dreams sometimes they die or they
Ye-
start to disappear.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
thought that was true for me. And I also created a story for myself, like, okay, after I got divorced, I was like, I'll just wait until I meet someone and then I'll start to travel. And I kept, kind of pinning my desires for myself to certain conditions
Mm.
that didn't even exist. It was something I fabricated in my mind.
Right.
And
And
I
like that you have to
remember
wait for something else or someone else.
exactly, it's
Yeah.
like as if I would only be deserving when that condition
Wow.
occurred,
Right.
if it occurred,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I was walking. I remember it clear as day. I was walking on the beach in Jersey in 2016, and I just still creating this little story in my head, and I was just like, wait, what the hell? Like,
You have to check yourself.
I did. I was like, girl, we've been coming to this beach for years. This story is not serving us.
Right. 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 Good.
It was like,
Good.
time out. This is
Yes.
all wrong. And I
Yes.
got my car and I drove home and I bought the ticket to New Zealand
That
because
same day.
that same day, I was like,
Wow.
I
Fast
got
action.
home, I pulled out my laptop and I was like, da 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 da. There we go. And that was it. I had figured, I said, okay, I'm going. I think it was gone almost 3 weeks.
Okay.
And, I was like, okay, I made arrangements for the kids to go to the dad. I was like, okay, they're old enough. They were like, early teens at that point.
Uh-huh.
And I went and I had a blast
You went by
and
yourself.
by myself, with myself.
Wow. New Zealand.
Yeah. And I thought I was going to park myself on a beach for 3 weeks. And instead, I zip lined. I'm afraid of heights. I hiked the volcano.
You copied your
I
peers and you went by yourself.
Yeah. I went
Wow.
kayaking. I don't know how to swim. And I started to confront things about myself. Like,
Mm.
I don't do these things in my
Yeah.
home country, but now I'm discovering aspects of my personality that I even didn't know existed. Right. And so that's when I realized, it was like, environment plays a big role.
Yes.
And I'm not a crier, but I booed on the day I was supposed to come back to America. I was like, ooh.
What was the
And even
boohoo about, Chrishan? What was the boohoo about?
I didn't want to go back.
Emotion.
Even one of my hosts, because this was around, yeah, this was 2016, 2017. So this was, the changing of the guard, if we will say.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I remember one of my Airbnb hosts said, "Is America okay?"
Ooh. And you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's like, you have to go back. And it was interesting because in that trip, also in New Zealand, they drive on the other side of the road, like everything's backwards, right? In
Uh-huh.
that regard. And I didn't think, I was like, oh no, I can't do this. 3 days in, I rented a car, drove cross country.
You go.
And I got pulled over twice because, again, kilometers, meters, or
Wow.
kilometers, miles, like everything was new.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing the conversion, and my New York City lead foot got the best of me. And I remember when I got pulled over, and my Airbnb host said, "Oh, did you notice that they don't have guns?" And I said,
Hmm.
"Oh, I didn't even notice. I didn't notice the first time I got pulled over. Notice the second time I got pulled over."
Okay.
Um, and and he explained why. He was like, it's the holiday season here because it was the beginning of the new year, and he's like, we're more vigilant this time of year,
Hmm.
and very kind. It was, and then my Airbnb host said, "Yeah, they won't shoot you like they do in your country." I was like,
Ouch.
"Ouch."
Oh my
Like, the
God.
whole world knows we're a shit show. Right?
Wow. And
And
just
so,
emphasizing that you can live a different way. It doesn't
yeah,
have to be that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And my host that I stayed with at that time was Maori of New Zealand, and indigenous people of New Zealand.
Mhm.
And so I was just like, wow. And then when I came back, well, it was really when I was getting ready to leave and I was crying my eyes out. I made the decision then. I said, 2023, when my daughter graduates, that's it, I'm out.
Wow.
And I was planning
Okay.
this whole time to move to New Zealand. So
Ooh.
2020, I wound up doing a scouting trip in February, right before
Okay.
lockdown. That was my second trip to New Zealand, to check out another part of the country to see, like, did I still feel it? Was it just
Uh-huh.
like, first time out the gate newness?
Uh-huh.
And then everything that happened in 2020 and about June was when I created Blaxit Global, because we were dealing with the murders of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor,
Mhm.
and then the replaying of that over and over and over and
Yeah.
over again.
Traumatizing.
Traumatizing. I
Yeah.
wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, and I'm already an introvert by nature, and I was closing in on myself, and in a
Mhm.
really bad way.
Yeah.
My mental health was seriously on the decline, and I had to put the oxygen mask on myself, because I realized if anything happened to me, like if I went,
Yeah.
I it's nothing, like everything falls apart,
True.
right?
True. True.
Everything falls apart with the kids, everything falls apart with my mom.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I have to redirect this energy. I have
Mhm.
to channel this into something positive. And that's
Mhm.
where Blaxit Global came from. Because even though I was traveling the world, I hadn't really connected with any Black expats in the countries that
Mhm.
I've been, but I knew they were out there. Uh,
Okay.
so I had the idea, I slid into some DMs, and people were gracious enough to, get on the mic and tell me their story, and the rest was
Mhm.
history.
So my Blaxit Global was a way to form community with
Yes.
expats.
Yes. Yeah,
Awesome.
because I knew that's where I wanted to be ultimately.
Okay.
And then that was where, but again, thinking it was New Zealand. And then maybe around 2021,
Uh-huh.
my daughter, she was homeschooling because, quarantine and everything. And
Mhm.
she shared that she felt like New Zealand was too far
Oh,
for her while she was in college.
okay.
So
Like
I
I
said,
still need you nearby, Mom.
yeah, I was like, okay, that's fair, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm a reasonable parent.
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
like, okay, that's fair. So because of the show, I had conversations with different people. So I started thinking, okay, let me look at different countries. So I
Hmm.
scouted Costa Rica. That didn't really hit the mark for me in terms of what I
Okay.
needed for my lifestyle.
Okay.
And then I came to Portugal, and that was it. Like, I knew maybe 3 days in that this was going to be the place.
Hmm.
And then it was off to the races. It was, getting myself together, my, money ready
Wait,
for.
wait, I'm sorry. I want to make sure. You knew 3 days in that this is the
Yes.
place where you wanted to relocate to. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Close proximity, like I can get a direct flight to the East Coast within 6 hours.
Okay.
The time zone difference isn't too outrageous, not like being, in Asia or in New Zealand.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so I said, okay, you know what? I can do this. It's convenient, plus close proximity to the continent of Africa.
Mhm.
I'd have access also to the Schengen countries within the European Union, and I still had more countries I wanted to visit. It's
Mhm.
way more affordable to visit these countries. Like, I'm going to Italy in a few days, and round trip it was like 126 euros.
You told me that I was like,
Um,
what? I couldn't believe it. Like, what did you say?
For the
Yes.
cost of dinner, you too can go to Italy.
Please.
And so that's what I wanted in my life. I love museums. I
Yeah.
love, the theater. And so I wanted to be able to have like all the things, access to the things that I wanted. Um, and so ultimately I got here, and then I just got residency a little over a week ago. And so, Portugal is now home.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So can you tell the audience how are you supporting other Black women or Black people coming to Portugal? So tell us a little bit more about My Blaxit Global and what
Yeah.
you offer and how you support other Black people coming to Portugal.
Yeah, so the podcast is really like one of our mass vehicles, stories, and then we have our private community, which is Black's Global Passport. It's off social media, right? So, not dealing with ads, algorithms, trolls, bots, and all those things, right? Or as a content creator, these platforms like to suppress our content or police our conversations,
True.
and this is a safe space. So inside Blaxit Global Passport, I do accountability groups. We have workshops. We have a book club. We have a men's club, a men's group rather. And so I really curate experiences based on where people want to move. So it just so happened that we had this past year a very large cohort that was interested in moving to Portugal. And so I had created two accountability groups because I didn't want like all the Portugal people to kind of like hog the group and then people that are going to other places because we've had members. We just had a member move to Thailand a few months ago and then last year Vietnam. And so this year, when I moved, it was 13 of us
That's
that
amazing.
moved. Yes,
You help
within,
13 Black people to freedom.
yes.
I love it. I love that, Harriet. I love it.
God,
Okay. Yes.
and we hang out. We've had I had a freedom dinner that I hosted in October. We're gonna have another a freedom event sometime in the spring, and so people, we have our group, our accountability calls, and we get on and we share information. We support one another. And then sometimes people realize like, oh, they have like certain interests, either entrepreneurial interests or they live near each other and they get together. And so it's just this like connectedness that I love. And then when people come here to scout, actually last night, one of my members that I wound up coaching earlier this week, she lives in the UK and she's in town this weekend for her birthday. And I just happened to run into her last night when I was out. And so I got to meet her in person. And so it's just great to have this like wonderful extended community so that when people know that they can get support and also that I'm a real person
Yes.
right?
Yes.
When they
Yes.
see me in the wild, it's really comforting because as I mentioned, for many of us, we are the first in our family to do this. We are the first to break away, and we are dealing with societal pressures
Yeah.
and conversations around, well, do Black people live in country X, right?
Mhm.
Or this country started insert, right? Or, well, we built this and I don't want to give up, and fill in the blank.
Right.
And so
But
having
how
this
is that affecting
community,
your quality of life currently, right? So
yeah,
even if as a people we did create everything here,
yeah,
how is you determined to stay in a system that's killing you,
yeah,
harming you? How
hmm,
is that doing anything for you? And I remember you and Halisi from our Black Utopia talk about
hmm,
that people will give you some backlash, like, why would you go to Portugal? They started the slave trade, right? And
yeah.
what tell the audience what is it that the response you give to people when they say things like that to you?
Yeah, it's really people just need to chill out and really stop. I mean, well, first of all, you can't defend something that's indefensible.
Hmm,
That's first and foremost,
true,
right? It is
true,
a fact that
true.
Portugal started the transatlantic slave trade.
Hmm.
However, it is America that perfected it and continues to optimize it and engages in lethal forms of racism and has
To this day,
historically,
to this
right?
day, yes,
Human trafficking, rape, right?
to this day.
Oppression,
Yep,
discrimination,
yep.
sitting on the back of the bus, blowing up churches,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Executing humans on TV,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Like, I mean, the list goes on and on.
Right,
And
right.
so, and to that, some people have this mindset that, oh, all Black people need to go back to Africa. And
Mm,
as I said before, we are free. So wherever we want to go,
yeah.
whether it's to the continent, whether it's to Asia,
Mhm,
anywhere you want to go,
mhm.
you have the right to do that. And the
True,
more that you start to not center whiteness as the default and the lens by which you view the world, because in
mhm.
reality, we are the global majority.
True.
When you start to say, oh, I can go anywhere, right? And Black also is a construct
Mhm,
because when you go to the continent of Africa, you go
mhm.
to African countries, saying, oh, let me see this Black man. Everybody there is Black, right? It's only when you come to a place like America, which is toxic as hell, and
Yes.
everything you have to check the box and be in this lane, right?
Mhm,
In this definition, in this rigid definition, that
mhm,
it even comes to your consciousness.
mhm.
And so that's where travel has been something that's been eye opening because, again, it helps me to question
Mhm.
where these thoughts, where this conditioning comes. And I'm in a period of deconditioning and
Mm.
starting to look at the world very differently.
Yeah.
And we see that what's going on a global scale,
Yeah.
even if we compare to what's going on, not compare, but also reference, what's going on with Israel and Palestine.
Mhm, mhm.
Before, it was all this one way. And if you spoke
Right.
against this, you
Yeah.
were that. And
Yes.
now it's not a black and white proposition anymore. There
Mm-mm.
are people who are, of the oppressed population,
Mhm.
right, who used to be silenced and
Yes.
disenfranchised
Yes.
that are now saying, "Oh, no, 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 we know what
Right.
this is.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
calling
Yes.
it for what it is, and we're gonna stand on it, even
Mhm.
if you try to take away my job, even if you try to silence me." And we see
Mhm.
that's going on a large scale. Some of the
Mhm.
celebrities that
Mhm.
have had challenges, right, with taking
Mhm.
a stance that's against the norm.
Mhm.
Right? And so that's where I say it's like the more you can start to deconstruct and decondition and
Mhm.
do that work. It is not, and it was not easy. It was a journey, and it still is a process and a lot
Yeah.
of shadow work that needed to occur. But
Yes.
the more that I put myself in this growth mindset
Mhm.
of being willing to be open and learn, because I don't presuppose to know everything,
Right.
and humble myself, the more I've been able to, and I said this during my talk at Exodus Summit, it's like open the aperture, right? Be
Oh,
able to see things in a new way, in a
I
bigger
like
way.
I like that. Open the aperture, right? So everyone, if you're not already familiar with Exodus Summit, you need to check that out. So Exodus Summit teaches or shows Black women how to leave the country, right? So visit or to relocate outside the country. So Krishan, how can people access everything that you talked about? How do they find out how to work with you? How do they find out about
Mm.
the podcast? How do they find out about these things?
Yeah, visit blaxitglobal.com. That's our space on the internet. You'll find links to YouTube channel. Definitely hit us over there and subscribe. You'll find the podcast. You can listen to all seasons 1 through 5. Season 6 is dropping on January 1st. You can join us inside of Blaxit Global Passport. Anybody who joins, they get 2 weeks free. So it doesn't ask for any credit card information or anything. You just come in, kick the tires, see if it's something that you like. And you can also work with me. I do one-on-one coaching for people who need additional support.
Awesome. So everybody, I put her information on the screen. It will also be in the description section. Okay. I'll also put the interview that Krishan, when Krishan interviewed me about Black women and toxic jobs, I'll put that interview in the description section as well. So Krishan, as we're
Mhm.
winding down, what would you say to a Black woman who's watching us right now and she's experiencing, as you said, the Sunday scaries. She's experiencing
Mhm.
Sunday scaries right now, and she is literally dreading to going back to work tomorrow, but she resonates with everything you said. She resonates with it, but she feels like she can't go because people have told her you got to stay at this good job. She fears that she won't be able to find another job. She won't be able to, if she left this job, she'll be homeless. What would you say to her, Krishan?
You deserve better.
Mm, you deserve better. You
And
deserve
you
better.
have to believe that you deserve better.
Yes, 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 yes. And that's key. And as Krishan and I have shown you and talked about, that you have options, right? You have options. It could be another job, it could be out the country, it could be a different relationship, it could be whatever
Mhm.
you want, right? That you
Yes.
have options. And we want to share that with you. And Krishan, as we're closing, I just want to read the chat just briefly. Okay, so I agree with living a life consistent with my values. A lot of good afternoons. So true. Hey, ladies. Hello, everybody. And also talk in a certain way. I've had a few run-ins with the tone police. Yep, yep, yep. They'll say,
Mhm.
no, I could hear you, but the way you said it made it hard because how you said it. Okay, yeah, the tone policing. Try to have your idea stolen by Becky, and it was great when she
Mhm.
presented it right. Oh, I think a lot of us have experienced that. I'm going to leave absence, never going back. Congratulations. That's exactly what I did. That is exactly what I did. I took a leave of absence and I resigned immediately. Okay.
Yes.
Same here. I stopped sharing as many ideas. And now my boss tries to eavesdrop when he sees me having a conversation with someone. That's some shady
Mm.
stuff. See, that's
But
plantation shady stuff.
exactly, because that is, again, right? We see the police, right? But before, it was just white people running around. They were the ones that were putting stakes on people's lawns, right?
Yes.
And felt that they had the right to do so,
Yes.
and observing things. And so that's that whole culture,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So when you see that in the workplace, and it's hard because as soon as you see it, right,
Mm-hmm.
you can't unsee it. And
Mm-hmm.
then on the backside is somebody who's trying to convince you that what you saw wasn't what you thought you saw,
The
right?
gaslighting.
There's the
And you start
gaslight.
self-gaslighting yourself, like, was it
That's
just
what,
that?
yep,
Right? Yes.
yeah.
So I know
Oh,
I've
and then I just wanted to correct. It's
yeah.
blaxitglobal.com, not my.
Oh, let me take that off. Okay. Thank you. So
No problem.
Blaxit, thank you so much. Blaxitglobal.com.
.com.
Okay. So everybody, this is the correct one. Okay. So check out the correct one. I'm sorry. Let me take this back off the screen. Okay. So Blaxit Global. Okay.
Yes.
So also, when you think about being in these toxic work environments where they steal your stuff, like what
Hmm.
Sean was saying, like I say, pay attention to the signs. When they start gaslighting you, and then you start self-gassing yourself, you're like, maybe I wasn't. Maybe that is a sign it's toxic, right?
Yes.
So when that happens, you can watch my videos, you can watch Marissa Price, you can watch Colette Elizabeth. We've all talked about this. When this happens, please do not talk to your colleagues about this because there are so many shady colleagues. There are so many colleagues who, and I would say this too, because I've had some colleagues, I still, I mean, I talk to them, I still respect them, but they are very much ruled by fear because they can see what happens
Mm.
with retaliation because they see what happens to you. And so they're so scared that they might say things or do things out of fear. So keep that in mind. Do not share with your coworkers. Did you see that? Did that just happen? And it's just me. Don't do
Mm.
that. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. Talk to an objective person who can,
Mhm.
who can tell them what happened and they can tell you the truth, right? You need to reality test because that self gaslighting will mess you up. Okay. So
Yes.
be mindful of that. Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, talked about ageism, like talked about before, Krishan. I learned my lesson not to be creatively me, which is devastating. Yes. So when you're in environments where they tell you that you're shining too bright, right?
Mhm.
Or they steal your ideas, or you feel like you're not growing, hence you can't utilize your creativity and you're
Yep.
not, that's not the place for you. Okay. So just be mindful
Mhm.
of that. Yes. There's an inspiring woman with the same name as you, Krishan. Okay. Uh, let me see. Future faking. Oh, we talked about that. We are being marketed to so much. I mentioned something, and the next thing I know, I'm seeing about an ad on my phone.
Yeah.
Girl, I'm like, are they in my head? I saw this recent thing that talked about how they can see what's on your phone. Like the microphone is on your phone, and you have to
Yeah.
go in and disconnect it because people have access to your microphone. I didn't know that
Yeah.
before. Okay.
And your privacy settings, like you have to go in, and I was a digital marketer, so I do periodically go in and I clear the cookies, I change the
Wow.
permissions, look at things, because I mean that's what I used to do for a living, right? So I know what to look out for, and that
Yeah.
periodically I need to like do, especially when I see something pop up that I'm like, wait a minute, I thought
Okay.
about it
Right.
or I
Right.
talked about it, and
Right.
now it's serving me. I'm like, oh, it's time to do some cleaning.
Exactly. Good to share that. Okay. Hi, Krishan. Thought I saw you at Thieves Market in Portugal yesterday. Were you there yesterday? I wasn't sure. Met people from the UK and they wanted to know what was happening in America. Yeah, America's got some issues. Good afternoon. Okay. So everybody, you see blaxitglobal.com.
Yay.
So if you want to check out Krishan with all the things that she offers, and I'll put that in the description section as well. Okay. Check her out. Now, I didn't go into things that are going on for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all that kind of stuff. I have a
Mhm.
separate video about that. So I have bonuses available to you. This is for Black women who are ready to leave toxic jobs. I have master classes and bonuses available to you. Again, Black women who are ready to leave. This is not for Black women who are saying, I just want to stick it out for a few. No, no.
Yeah, don't do
For
it.
Black
Don't
women,
do it.
don't do it, right?
Don't
Because
do
it
it.
doesn't get better; it gets worse. I'm telling you, it gets worse.
No,
I've had
it
so many
does.
people, Chrishan, people from my old job. They're not even Black. They will reach out to me on social media and say, "I'm watching you on social media, and I appreciate the work you're doing. It's so much worse, right?" So I'm here to tell
Mhm.
you, everybody, it doesn't get better. Please
It
go.
doesn't.
When you see the writing on the wall, please go. And it's going to affect your health too. Okay. It's going to affect
Yes.
your health. Oh, I
Yeah.
see one more person. Third culture here, kid here who grew up as Black, white with a Black single mother. As diplomats, we were treated better than in our own home country here in the US. Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
So, yeah, in terms of just thinking about how we're treated differently with
Yes.
more respect somewhere else. So, keep that in mind. So, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I'll put Krishan's information in the description section. I'll put information about Black Friday, Cyber Monday window bonuses that are available to you as Black women, in terms of masterclass bonuses for Black women leaving or wanting to leave toxic jobs. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Give this video a thumbs up. Also, share this video with at least 2 other Black women, right? So, again, I'm ushering in this movement. I'm ushering in the movement to help as many Black women as I can to leave and heal from toxic jobs. Okay. So as
Mhm.
I said, Krishan said, live a life that's more revolutionary, right? Be courageous
Yes.
in your living. Think about what is best for you and live that life, right? So as
Mhm.
Krishan said, live a life by design, not by default. Okay.
That's
We've
right.
been programmed. We're, as you said, we're deprogramming ourselves. Okay. Watching my
Mhm.
videos, listen to Krishan, checking out what she has available. That might be part of your deprogramming. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with at least 2 other Black women. If you have not already subscribed to this channel, please do so. Lifting Us to Climb Consulting, Wellness Services. And I'm going to say goodbye, everyone. I'll see you next time. Krishan, if you could just stay on for a
Thank
few
you so
moments.
much.
Thank you. Bye bye,
Bye,
everybody.
y'all.
Okay,